Hey guys, it is week 412. Let's hop right into the reviews. The first one up is from 88 Films. This is one of the Shaw Brothers flicks. This is an Amorous Woman of the Tang Dynasty. This is one that I had seen the title a couple times. Didn't know too much about it. Knew it had, maybe, I don't want to say exploitation flair because it's more of an art film for sure. This is in the latter days, the Shaw Brothers, before they kind of switched to television. So it's like 84, around that time. So it's not necessarily your typical standard kung fu movie or exploitation style film, or even one of their horror films. They kind of had some new wave stuff going on in Hong Kong in the early 80s, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's 100% new wave, but it does have that kind of art flair to it. Reminds me a little bit kind of like The Sword with the Patrick Tam movie, just in a little terms of style and everything. I guess not as subtle as The Sword, but what we have here is a period piece, and we have followed this woman who's basically become kind of a poet. She's kind of like, I guess you'd say like a muse to a certain extent. Well, she has a muse, but she kind of like performs poetry, and she doesn't really sleep with men. She sleeps with who she wants. She's kind of a really, free-spirited woman for the time. She doesn't want to fall into the traditional values of a woman, become somebody's, spouse and clean, all that kind of stuff like that. She's really unique in a lot of ways. And she has a maid that she's very close to. Definitely some sort of lesbian love relationship going on between them two. Maybe one-sided, if you will. And one day she meets this kind of traveling swordsman, this kind of fighter who travels and kills kind of evil, people that are higher up that are just disobeying the law. And she ends up having this kind of relationship with him. In fact, when they first meet, it's a great artistic scene where he's dipping his sword in the water and she's swimming, kind of like just dives into the water, and she ends up meeting him, and they pull up and they have like this like crazy, sex kind of, time in the boat and everything. And it's just like a lot of artistic flourishes like that are a little bit different. So they start this long-term kind of relationship, and it goes over many periods of time, many years. And as it progresses, there's other people kind of pressuring her to change, and there's other people in her like group, her mid group, that like comfort her and talk to her and stuff. And she kind of has her reins really hard on this maid, and that plays a lot of the drama in here. I don't want to spoil everything about the movie. There's some nasty stuff that happens. A group of thugs come in and rape and attack everyone. You see kind of how prostitution, brothels are paid for, and stuff. How people come in and how they get new people, and that idea. There's a lot of political and financial turmoil going on at the same time. The ending is fantastic. It's amazing. It's just one of these really kind of dark, tragic endings that I think a lot of the characters are saying so much with what they do and how they're portrayed. It's a beautiful ending. There's also another character who's like a swordsman who makes these beautiful swords that plays into the fact. It's just playful, artistic, and kind of, darker than I expected. It takes a couple really dark turns. I thought An Amorous Woman of the Tang Dynasty was really exceptional. And it's a title that I think a lot of people might be, it's so hard with the Hong Kong titles. You never really know what you're actually going to get right. Sometimes they'll have these horrible titles and it's not that bad. And then sometimes they'll have these titles like this, and you'll see and you're like, there's a lot of crazy, pretty intense stuff in here. Just thought it was really well directed, really well acted, really good, nuanced characters, and a beautiful one to look at too. So as far as the special features are concerned, also there's plenty of nudity and sex, which is going to keep people intrigued. As far as the special features are concerned, we have audio commentary by journalist David West. We also have Alex Mann on Amorous Woman of Tang Dynasty. And this is good because this guy's on both parts. He's part one on the Hong Kong, the other movie I'm going to review, and this is part two, I believe. And he talks about being overworked to ridiculous levels. He'd be like, I was working on 3 movies in one day, sometimes never sleep. And then you're just like, geez, this guy was worked to death. He's really good in this, good solid role. He plays the kind of traveling kind of Ronin. There's some good fight scenes and attacks and everything like that. Like the new kind of shiny covers that 88 did on there. And you see this is number 43 on the line. They do that line. If it's a Shaw Brothers, 88 does the line here, and then they kind of just have the more flashy cover on here. But nice release on this movie. Really enjoyed this one. Recommended. Great stuff. Next up is another one from 88 Films, and this is Hong Kong. Now, this is a contemporary film. This is a new wave Hong Kong movie, like Patrick Tam and Wong Kar-wai films. But, this one was exceptional as well. So the title, Hong Kong, the cover, you would think it's some sort of, romantic love story. And it is that, but it's got a lot more going for it. So it follows the story of two, I believe, illegal immigrants kind of in Hong Kong. And a lot of the stuff was happening, obviously, Britain. The history of Hong Kong is complicated, especially with going back to China and all these kind of things of people from Britain and all these complicated things here. So we have this woman who is leaving China. She wants to become, in the very beginning of this film, it opens up brilliantly, so I want to explain, and it ends the same way. It's a great little bookends of this movie. We see, like, the city coming down, and it looks gorgeous, looks beautiful, metropolitan city and everything. You're like, oh, this is, like, just high-class, great stuff, and they go past, like, a certain barrier, and it almost is like it changes into a world. You get more on the ground level, and you can see, like, these are kind of the slums, or at least to us they appear to be slums, and this is how everyday Hong Kong people work. This is how these people struggle through society and everything like that. So there's two main characters. Like I said, this one young woman who's kind of ran from China, and she was told that her family would be waiting for her. She could kind of make a means here and live here. She's kind of pushed out of the house, and she has to live in some sort of it's basically gang run, where the gang protects you, and you sleep in these shitty little bunks, and you basically have to give the gang what they want when they call for it. So that's kind of really unsettling, upsetting kind of situation. And then we also have this other guy, I believe he's Taiwan. I think his character's from Taiwan. He also is in the first movie, Amorous Woman of Tang Dynasty. And this character he knows how to fight, and he's a gambler, and he's got a lot of kind of issues and stuff. And he kind of bumps into this woman one day on the road, and he ends up helping her out. They have a couple run-ins, and they start to kind of form a weird relationship because he's running from these gamblers, these criminals, and he had legally gambled or something like that, and he jumps in her shower, and then he repays the favor for her kind of running from the Hong Kong police. But of course they form a relationship, kind of a shaky one, a weird one, and it's really about attraction, and they tend to really love each other. But what this woman has to do is she's kind of lured in by this older woman. There's a lot of people in Hong Kong that really are older men or something, and they never had offspring, so they're looking for that child, right, that to pass on their their lineage and things like that. So she starts a relationship with an older gentleman who, to what looks like us, is a crappy apartment, but it's pretty good for Hong Kong apparently here. So he moves in with her, and he starts to kind of like spoil her at first, but we realize that she's going to basically just carry this man's baby to pregnancy, and then it is what it is after that. And it starts off kind of like it's an odd situation, right? Like this for that, of course, but it gets complicated and ends super tragically. Our kind of brawler here ends up becoming a kind of a kickboxer, kind of Muay Thai kind of guy, and he starts these real crazy fights. And I don't want to spoil anything, but at one point, the highs get really high and the love is blossoming, and it ends on such a tragic note. Something like Lost Souls, the film's Lost Souls, the ending of that, the Hong Kong Shaw Brothers film from 1980, it reminds me of it. It really does, but more hard hitting, because you like these characters, you watch them struggle throughout the entire film. Great film. I thought Hong Kong was one of the best Shaw Brothers movies I've ever seen. I thought it was just an exceptionally well-directed, loved the city shots, on location, unlike many of the other Shaw Brothers movies. Not shot in the studio, not a horror film, just a really good drama with a lot of fighting and stuff like that along those lines. Good features as well. We again have a commentary by journalist David West. He's really good at pointing out, talking about the Hong Kong New Wave and how this was not on set. So he points out all this kind of great information and stuff, and why there was a lot of political turmoil and the reasons and stuff, and gets into that stuff that only somebody that's an expert or from Hong Kong would know about. And then we also have Alex. Then we have Alex Mann on Hong Kong. Hong Kong, again, this is the first part of these two. So these two have a double kind of interview on here, both logs with the actor speaking in English, and English is not his first language, so it's a little hard to understand, but two great releases. Again, has a shiny cover from Shaw Brothers, and what I know people like to know, this is number 44 on the side there, so whatever it is. Yeah, but good stuff. Love these releases from 88 Films, constantly broadening my horizons on the Shaw Brothers movies. It's not just all kung fu and horror movies, there's a lot more than you think. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about another pair of Shaw Brothers movies here. So we're going to start with the Daredevils first. This is a double set here, Daredevils and Ode to Gallantry. Two Venom mob films. So yeah, this is both by Chang. The first one's directed in 1979, so getting towards the tail end of the Shaw Brothers films, and that is Daredevils. Now this has pretty much, I think, all five Venoms. I remember the guy from the original five Venoms really didn't stick along too long. I think it was the Mantis, or maybe not the Mantis, but I can't remember. The tall, skinny guy, he really didn't stay along in the Venoms for too long. But it has, the guy I confused last week for somebody is in here, of course, from Crippled Avengers. All of them are in here. So this is a more contemporary piece here. This is an exceptional movie. I love this one. As you guys can't tell, I love kind of movies with groups of friends that are willing to sacrifice and get revenge and lay it all down on the line. Wild Bunch is one of my all-time favorite movies, so I'm totally into that kind of stuff here. So what we have here is kind of a general taking over this area. And he kills this guy's father. The guy's brother gets killed. He narrowly escapes. He goes back to his buddies that are struggling, kind of living in squalor, but they're all kind of acrobatics and they kind of are street performers and they're really good at everything they do, but they also are really good martial artists. So he goes back to them and they learn of his fallen brother and father, and they decide to try to take revenge. They're planning things, and we have a lot of great choreographed stuff in the street of them doing tricks and having funny, back and forth with each other. Great stuff. But a tragedy strikes once again, and that's when it kind of kicks up a notch, and they devise this amazing plan to kind of infiltrate and trick a bunch of people. And the movie ends with probably one of the best Shaw Brothers fight scenes I've ever seen in a warehouse, where the characters are acrobatic, and they mix in all this kind of stuff like that. It's just a wonderfully great fight scene. Highly recommended. I don't want to spoil absolutely everything, like I said, but this is a later one in the Shaw Brothers thing. So there's squibs, there's violence. It's a little bit more on the violent side when we're talking about action and things like that, more contemporary. Good villains, good bad guys, and it kind of feels like almost like it has that element of the kung fu stuff too, the old school, with the bad guys have their own special, unique weapons, so that's all in there too. The bad guys are kind of like basically, made up as their weapons. That's pretty much what they are. But there is special features on here. I don't think there's anything. I think there's one extra thing. Deadly Venom's new interview with Hong Kong cinema scholar Wayne Wong, who was on last week. He was on, I believe he was on the Spies Super Lies disc. It kind of had a similar kind of style interview. But it has two different commentaries on here. One with East Asian film expert Frank Jin and Michael Worth, martial artist and filmmaker. That's good. And then we also have one with Mike Leader and Artie Venema. All four of these guys know Hong Kong very well. They know a lot of information, so that's always a good commentary to have. Really, really liked this one. I thought it was the better of the two, but that just fits more my style. The Daredevils, great title too, 1979. A lesser, it's not a super known Shang-Chi movie. This guy's directed so many movies, but it's not one of the most popular titles. It's kind of lower if you look like Letterboxd or something like that by sort by popularity, but good stuff. Okay, next one here is from 1982, and this is Ode to Gallantry, and this is more of a period piece, wild, weird movie, directed by Chang here. Now, I don't even know how to go about this one. So, in a way, it reminds me of Buddha's Palm, which is one of the fantastical kind of Shaw Brothers movies, which is completely batshit. It's not nearly as fantastical as that or fantasy-based as that. But what we have here is this guy named Mongrel. He's basically kind of a backwoods, kind of country bumpkin, mountain kind of man. He comes down, he's confused why he's there, and immediately people are like, you're so-and-so, you're this mistaken kind of identity thing, fish out of water kind of story here. And they all think he's this one guy who committed an awful sexual assault, killed a bunch of people, or ran away into the woods. And his parents are looking for him, his uncle and a gang of people are looking for him. But he gets tangled in this giant mess in the very beginning when he sees this big fight scene break out inside the market, and they're all looking for this kind of special medallion that he ends up pocketing on accident, and as being in a piece of pita bread. And whoever has that medallion is granted a wish by this super badass kind of kung fu expert who is a mass murdering, killing guy, but he only kills who he feels deserves it. So that kind of pits him in the middle of this gang war where they all want the medallion because he grants him a wish, and he ends up kind of being taken under his wing by this kind of badass kung fu expert while everybody's trying to get a hold of him because they think he's someone else. Well, we're going to, of course, reveal who the other person they're looking for, and we have all these kind of confusing things, and it's that, that kind of dumb guy with a heart of gold, and the actual guy who they're looking for is, supposedly from a nice family, but he's an awful person. A bunch of people's real identities are going to get revealed. There's some of the Venoms are in here. Some have smaller roles towards the end of the film. There is some magical elements in here. Overall, this one's fun. It's entertaining. It's goofier than the last film, but Ode to Gallantry is a good movie. I enjoy it. Not the best, but not even close to being the worst Shaw Brothers movie. As far as the features, again, we have the double commentaries again with Frank Jin and Michael Worth, and we also have the commentary with Mike Leader and Artie Venema. So a nice release here. Two Shang-Chi movies. I would highly recommend the Daredevils, and I would say Ode to Gallantry is more fun, more goofy, kind of whimsical, fun stuff if you like that. That's Philip Koch in that one. I hope you guys say his name, Kwok. Terrible pronunciation until I hear it pronounced a couple times, but he's in the last film as well. He's got a great great role in the last one. He's good in this one. He's fun. Kind of dual roles, actually. Okay, next up is the start of a box set. We're going to do a whole another box set here. I like to do these one at a time, one disc at a time. We have 6 films in this box set. First disc has, this is Mabuse Lives, Dr. Mabuse from 1960 to 1964. And we're going to do the first disc here. I actually like how they're doing this. This slips off the back, and you can keep it because it has all the information on there. So it's in 2 discs here. And we have the first one here. Mabuse, this is The Thousand Eyes of Dr. Mabuse right here. This is the one we're going to be covering, 1960. Great year for horror and, kind of genre cinema. We had Psycho, Peeping Tom, Eyes Without a Face. So it's a really strong contender here on stuff. This is directed by legendary director Fritz Lang. I think everybody would know Fritz Lang, on this channel, at least from M and Metropolis and things like that. Those are the 2 big ones that I know. He is pretty much more prolific than that. And he directed the first Mabuse movie in 1920s. I think it's based on a book, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And then he did another one in the 30s where I think he kind of killed the character off. Came back later to do one in the 60s, and I think that was the last one he did. And these are all kind of from the 60s run. Mabuse would carry on after the 60s, and I think there's a Jess Franco one made in the 70s. I don't know how official it is, it's like Franco's all tied to all sorts of weird, series, including the freaking Orloff series. But then at top of that, there was one made in 1990 by Claude Chabrol, who is a great French director, done tons of thrillers and stuff like that, great movies. In 1990, and it's called Dr. M, and I guess it's homage to, M and Dr. Mabuse. This is all kind of talked about in the opening. This thing here, introduction by Tim Lucas, which is like 15 minutes of jam-packed information, and I thought that was really great information to have, considering the fact that I've seen these Mabuse movies flying around forever. I always see the titles, and I'm like, I have no idea where to begin on the Mabuse movies. So this 1961, and again, I always joke, I'm not huge into spy films or anything like that, but this I can get behind. This is more like Mad Scientist, spy, hidden identity. This stuff I like. So we have here, at the very beginning, this woman is at this kind of fancy hotel, and she's going to kill herself. She's going to jump off the building, and everybody's trying to talk her down, and this kind of rich gentleman is staying in the room next to her, convinces her, and they immediately have like a fling. They have a relationship. They start to be invested in each other. There's reporters everywhere. There's cops everywhere. Earlier in the day, I sort of started with this, a reporter was killed. He was assassinated by Howard Vernon, of course. Classic, great actor from the Jess Franco movies, and later on in stuff like Delicatessen. Just a classic, genre actor for Howard Vernon. So basically, we've had this reporter be killed. We have this suicide attempt, and of course, it's going to get more complicated at this fancy hotel. I just watched Abbott Costello Meet the Killer, so there's comparisons here to the silliness, ridiculousness, trapdoors, spying, all that kind of stuff, and it's more serious in that vein, right? We have a couple police officers who get involved in the case, and we also have this strange, kind of mystic kind of character who is kind of saying all these weird premonitions and things are coming true, and he's blind, and he's involved. The woman who committed suicide is running from a really bad marriage, and, she obviously seems like possibly a femme fatale in a lot of ways. I don't want to spoil absolutely everything. All the characters are not exactly who they appear to be. Some are more obvious than others. It's well acted. There's English dub and a German original language here, but as in the Italian movies, it's said that they were all just kind of post-dubbed anyway, so the actors spoke their native language, native tongue on the set. Overall, I think Dr. Mabuse is a vastly entertaining, nice twists and turns, keeps you involved, keeps you invested, good characters. Overall, it's really good. I was very happy with it. I didn't really know what to expect. I figured I would enjoy these because it seems more like not necessarily horror, but a little bit of the sci-fi tinge, kind of, suspense thriller deal in here. As far as the special features are concerned, we have English dub, German dub, audio commentaries by film historian, author David Kalat, introduction to each film by genre expert, and video watchdog founder Tim Lucas. Mabuse Lives at CC interview. There we go. Mabuse Lives, great stuff. I'd highly recommend this one. Cool stuff. I'm going to pop in the second disc that is on here as well. See, there are 2 double discs on here. And this next disc coming up has the return of Dr. Mabuse and the invisible Dr. Mabuse. So, yeah, sounds fun. Okay, this next one here from Vinegar Syndrome was one of my favorites. I'm so happy to see it get a nice Blu-ray release from them. And this is a double feature. It comes with Her Vengeance from 1988 and Devil Fetus. Let's talk about Her Vengeance first and foremost. I said 88 by the director of Story of Ricky, The Cat. He did Seventh Curse. Just amazing movies, amazing action, crazy, batshit crazy director. Amazing movies. Her Vengeance was probably one of the first Hong Kong movies I've ever saw. I reviewed it on my channel 15 years ago. I think I saw Hard Boiled first. But this movie always stuck with me, always blew me away. Now, the history of this movie has a lot of different kind of versions, composites, bootlegs, all sorts of shit. I'm going to show you my Fortune Star DVD too, which was the category 2B rating, which is not the highest rating that Hong Kong has, although in the commentary you learn, great commentary again by Ryan Smith, art editor, and Bruce Holchek, you learn that this was actually released a week before the rating system went into effect, because Man Behind the Sun, if I'm not mistaken, and so it really was never rated a Cat 3 possibly. So that's kind of a weird, shaky thing here. What we have here is this woman that sees these kind of goons. It's in Macau, and they again explain why it's in Macau. That's why I like a Macau. Why the violence takes place in that city, because Hong Kong didn't want it. Kind of the same reason you see that shit in the opening of Untold Story or Bullshit. We constantly traveling back and forth to different places and always doing the most heinous shit in the other countries, not in Hong Kong. So what happens is, this woman sees these guys that did some horrible acts to her father years ago and some other loved ones, and they're in the club, they're drunk. In the opening, we see like 5 of them on these like rickshaw, like these bike rickshaws, kind of fucking with the drivers and just being big pieces of shit, all familiar character actors. The one that I recognized immediately was Blue Jean Monster. He's in Untold Story, he's in everything. He's a big, mean-looking motherfucker. There's a couple other guys in here you'd recognize. And what happens is they go to this kind of burlesque kind of dance show, and they start heckling everybody. The woman tells them to get lost, get out of here. She has a history with them. They do not recognize her. And in retaliation, they graphically gang rape her in a cemetery. It's not pleasant. It's pretty awful. There's 2 versions of the movie on here. One is more explicit, but it has more character development. The other one has more character development, kind of stuff like that. And there's even more scenes. So you can't really get a composite because there's different scenes kind of back and forth and stuff like that, like that don't happen exactly how they do. But what happens is she's obviously distraught. She ends up catching a venereal disease, which is really nasty and tragic. And that's the one thing in a lot of these movies where people never really bring up venereal disease and like a gang rape or something, or somebody that sleeps with tons and tons and tons of people in movies. It's like, well, that's a kind of a thing that happens a lot in real life, so it very well should be kind of addressed in these movies. So She has a blind sister. She has her old father's friend who's crippled from the original accident, and she decides to move to Hong Kong to follow these guys and try to kill them. That's her plan. And from the commentary, I learned this is a remake of old Shaw Brothers movie Kiss of Death, which is one of their early 76 or so kind of rape revenge kind of style movies, which I've never actually seen, but I have the DVD. I'm waiting for a Blu-ray at this point. So it's kind of a pretty much remake, I guess, of that one. So a lot of her friends and family try to talk her out of it, but she's dead set, and she starts to pick them off pretty quick until the whole movie ends in this great showdown where there's tons of booby traps and crazy shit. The action's really fantastic. It's an incredibly tragic kind of revenge film where, people that cause the revenge, they don't get out scot-free. People get killed that are loved ones of hers, and it's really kind of effective. I love this film, always loved this film. A lot of like crazy dramatic scenes in the rain. Just a really strong, messed up movie that I really enjoy. I'm a big fan of revenge films and this kind of style of revenge films, and this is one of the best ones around, honestly. Her Vengeance looks really good. Sound, wasn't perfect, but I imagine that's the elements a lot of times. It's not like you're going to get Dolby Atmos on Her Vengeance, but the sound was pretty solid, and I enjoyed it. Great commentary on here. Love the commentary by art editor Bruce Holchek and Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith is a newcomer to the duo. Art editor and Bruce Holchek have been doing a lot of these kind of Cat 3 films for Air 444, and they pop up on the Untold Story commentary. They know their shit when it comes to Category 3 movies. Ryan Smith is no different. This guy knows tons of stuff about Category 3 movies. I actually heard him on a podcast. If I can remember, I'll put the link below. I think it's Hellbent for Horror podcast. He was on there, and he absolutely tore it up. A lot of information, tons of stuff. All 3 of them do a really good job on it. Tons of information about the actors, Hong Kong, the releases, stuff like that. Great commentary. And obviously, I am biased because I'm friends with Bruce and Art, but I wouldn't mention it if it wasn't very good. I would just kind of graze over it. You know what I mean? But it's good stuff. But yeah, it's just a great release of a great movie. So Her Vengeance, check it out. Love seeing the Hong Kong movies and the Asian films finally getting these nice Blu-rays. It's definitely a cycle because I had the old Fortune Star DVDs, but a lot of them never really got stateside releases either. Okay, next one up from Vinegar Syndrome on this double feature is Devil Fetus. And I must admit, I do prefer the old kind of poster or DVD cover that I had of the Devil Fetus. It's not a horrible cover here. This is more like the movie, actually. But this is 83, so it's like, Dave, why are you covering an 83 movie when you're about to be done with 82? I just couldn't wait. I had never seen Devil Fetus. I have a DVD, but I was waiting for the Blu-ray. It comes out. Yes, crazy, kind of low budget. It's not a Shaw Brothers. I don't even think it's a Golden fucking Harvest, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. I don't think it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Could very well be. But this is a really wild, weird movie. It takes from a lot of films. I mean, there's music cues from The Thing, which is nothing different, a lot of those. They're not the only people doing it. A lot of the 82 pornos stole right from the Pill Prince would steal cues from John Carpenter all the time. But this one has a cue from The Thing. It also has a little similarities to the kind of haunted house movies, but it feels more wacky than that. Definitely in the vein of like an Evil Dead, but more like Evil Dead latter-day sequels or House Suit, something that just goes completely batshit crazy. A lot of the kills are reminiscent of something like A Nightmare on Elm Street, which is mentioned in the commentary by Travis Woods, and I can definitely see that. This is a weird movie, same year as Boxer's Omen and Seeding of a Ghost. Seeding of a Ghost is absolutely batshit crazy too, in the same vein, but in the early 80s, there was a lot of ghost stories going on, and Hong Kong was always pushing that envelope on exploitation and violence, so it only makes sense that eventually their ghost stories would get crazy and possession stories would get as crazy as well. So what happens here is, in the very beginning, we have this woman who buys this vase, or a genie lamp, if you will, and she really likes it. It kind of spoke to her, if you will, at this auction. She takes it home, rubs it, and what happens is a rape genie comes out and starts fucking her. If this movie was a Japanese movie, it would 100% be called Rape-O Genie or Rape Genie or something along those lines, like Rape Man. Rape Genie, for sure, or Fuck Genie, whatever you want to call it. So the husband comes in one day and sees this rape genie raping her and decides to destroy the lamp. It blows up in his face. He becomes a mutant thing, and he jumps out and kills himself. A couple days later, the mother is also killed. The nephews witness it and everything like that. There's a curse put on her that in 12 years she will rise and possess somebody, but it's more like the rape genie within her. It's like baby or something like that. It's really fucking weird. So they put all these spells on there, which is common in Asian cinema. If people watch more modern cinema, don't watch old cinema, it's in something like The Wailing, the spells and things like that. But they're in absolutely everything from, films like The Hut, which is an old film, to Mr. Vampire. It's in everything. The spells to hold the demons and the genie and the possessed and the vampires and zombies and the night creatures and stuff like that. The spells. So spells are there. Of course, 12 years later, the nephews are more grown up. One's starting a serious relationship. The parents are back and they're visiting their grandma, and somebody bumps the urn, the kind of shrine, and knocks the spell off. What happens is, who's fucking out? Rape Genie's out, and he's looking to possess somebody. So what happens is one of the nephews gets possessed, so there's scenes of cross-dressing, and first there's a dog, so there's a horny dog. Rape Genie's incredibly horny, so of course he's going to rape people, do weird things, start killing people with weird magical powers. There's some lasers. If you had a Hong Kong movie or an Asian film, Indonesian film, that didn't have kind of like a wizard fight, it wouldn't be one, right? Am I wrong? Like every time they're like this, we're like, well, this guy possessed her, so they get like a shaman, and a shaman comes in and starts fight. It's batshit crazy stuff. The ending is fantastic, and that's where I think it comes more like Evil Dead style things, because I've seen this compared to Evil Dead, where like we have like weird kind of creature rolling heads. The monster is just at the end, it's just a guy in a slimy green suit. There is some animal cruelty in here, which is really fucking unpleasant. Actually, I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect it to go that far with that bird, but it did. Overall, Devil Fetus is fucking batshit crazy, bloody, gory, non-PC, insane Hong Kong cinema. The kind of stuff you're looking for in the early 80s when you're looking at Hong Kong cinema. And I know that everybody watching this channel has already maybe a lot of people have seen this, but a lot of people probably have, rented all the American movies, seen all the crazy shit from the early 80s. But if you haven't seen Devil Fetus, if you haven't checked out some of these Hong Kong movies, that is where the secret stash is. That is where the gold is when it comes to the horror movies, the weird ones. So like the early 80s of Hong Kong horror is fantastic. When you get some more like exploitation style, like The Beast or Lost Souls, but as you progress, you get weird stuff like Bewitched or Corpse Mania, and these movies are fantastic. In 82, Hell Has No Boundaries, Human Lanterns, Curse of Evil. These are really good movies. And even the ones that are lesser horror movies are still good. Like Return of the Dead. I've never had any negative things on a lot of the Hong Kong. The lowest Hong Kong horror film, especially from Shaw Brothers, was like a 3 out of 5. And most of the time they're like 4 plus. But this one is really good, really crazy, really weird. The commentary by Travis Woods. He's not one to dive into the actors or the production. Lo Wei actually produced this. Lo Wei was an actor and director himself. He popped up and he was all over that, Super Spies and Secret Lies kind of box set that I was in. He actually was in a couple of those movies as the director and an actor in those. So, he was no a stranger to that, but he pops up as a producer on this movie. I don't know how hands-on he was, but Travis Wood's commentary is more in line with talking about the things that inspired it, what's it like, where the filmmaking techniques, how he likes it and stuff like that. So it's not, the packed information commentary where it's like, here's the release date, here's this actor, here's why this is this, that kind of, it's not that stuff. It's different from the other commentary on the Her Vengeance. So yeah, if you sounds like it's up your alley, these bad boys are on 2 separate discs too. So it's not, it's not 1 disc. So Her Vengeance has 2 versions, highly recommended. There's a booklet in here as well. Great release. One of my favorites of this year already. Okay, next up is a theater watch. This is a 2025 movie, and this is Ash by Flying Lotus. Flying Lotus did Kuso a couple years back, one of the grossest, crazy, wildest movies I've ever seen. Now, Flying Lotus, I think, was more of a music guy before he got into directing, but Kuso is definitely worth watching. Really crazy movie. And Ash, I was like, I was excited to see it come to theaters, and it's a step up, I think, in probably budget for him. This is a Shudder RLJ kind of release here. And I was shocked to see it pop up in my theaters, because my theater isn't like the biggest theater, but I thought I'd check it out. And the first opening, I was like, oh man, this movie visually is amazing. It's a space horror film. Sound design is amazing. Score is amazing, which is rare for a newer film. I was like, the score is really strong in this one. The sound design is exceptional. Visually, it's amazing. And it's told out of order. So we kind of have this this woman wakes up confused what happened. She's surrounded by all her friends on this planet, her astronaut partners or whatever you want to call them, and they're all dead and smashed up, and there's a couple missing, so she doesn't really know what the fuck is going on. She starts to walk outside, and I don't want to spoil too much here, but overall, I think it is a good movie. I think it's well made. I think the story is a average story told in not 100% unconventional way, but unconventional enough that it makes it a little different. I think that it's a little too talky. I think we've seen everything this movie does in terms of story and script, so that's not really anything amazing. Overall, I think it's a good movie. I think it's visually amazing, sound design amazing, score is amazing, acting solid, gore is great as it picks up, the gore gets solid, but overall, I just felt the script was a little lackluster. Don't want to come down hard on this movie, because I definitely think it's worth your time. More views could get better, but as the story progressed, I felt like I had seen it done much better in other films. But yeah, overall, Ash is worth checking out if it sounds like it's up your alley. But now I'm going to get into some spoilers. But my favorite scene of the whole movie is in the opening act, right? When she walks out on this planet, she can breathe on here, she doesn't know why, and she sees a shadowy figure, and she kind of raises her arms, and the shadowy figure raises them back, and I was like, oh, that's such a really effective scene. In the first act, I was like, this is going to be really good. Aaron Paul's in here, is kind of a bigger actor, and the guy from The Raid is also in here, another actor. And if he's in here, you're gonna have some martial arts shit going on. I like the cast; they all look unique and different. They're not like the same cookie cutter characters you get. You're like, I can't tell any of these people apart. All of them, they stand out. They're completely different. But as the movie progresses, they kind of like reveal more, and you kind of know what's going on to a certain extent. And it just goes on a little too long. There's a really great kind of robotic character thing that like helps find illness that I love. That gimmick, but there's good gore effects. There's some nasty shit going on. Overall, Ash is worth seeking out if it sounds like it's up your alley. I've not seen kind of a there's some space horror, but it's a little different. It's kind of gnarly, and I think that's pretty cool of it. Okay, let's get to those 1982 movies. First up is an Akatsu erotic films. How could it not be? And I've watched this before, but I could not rewatch it. Although I wouldn't call this necessarily horror, definitely more exploitation style. And this is White Rose Campus, and then it was like AKA or ... and then everybody got raped. They definitely did not put that on here. But this movie is completely wild, completely weird. I think this director did some of the zoom up movies, and there's zoom out, zoom up, zoom in. I think zoom out or whatever, but he did a couple of them, a couple of the better ones, I think, that I've covered on here, and Tokyo Caligula, I think this director also did, if I'm not mistaken, but it's hard to keep track. So this movie is completely insane, and this is the first time I watched it, and I was like, man, this is a lot like Cheerleaders Wild Weekend. So Cheerleaders Wild Weekend I covered a few weeks back, maybe a couple months ago, and that basically follows the story of some criminals or people that decide to become criminals that kidnap a busload of cheerleaders and going to hold them for ransom, but there's always that threat of rape, because there's some gross, grody criminals, and they're like, well, these are hot cheerleaders. They make them do like sex games and all that kind of shit like that, do strip nudes, dance-offs, and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, well, what if that was Japanese, yeah? And what if the threat of rape was just all-out rape nonstop? And then you got yourself White Rose Campus. So essentially two kind of gross punk kids are like, we're gonna hijack this schoolgirls that are going on for a trip and they're supposed to meet somewhere, and they're like, we need their third buddy never shows up, so they're like, we'll just find this sleazy guy that is a janitor and take him with us. So we got this old man too, so they all kind of end up kidnapping all these girls on the bus. But what's so fucked up about this movie is it's a dark comedy first, I think, or it's supposed to be, and there's just shit like, well, all the ugly girls are getting kicked off the bus, and then the girls that are getting kicked off, it's like the Jordan Key and Peele joke, right, where they're like being bidded off as slaves, and they're like, well, I'm better than that old guy. So like they get the girls that are supposedly ugly get kicked off the bus, and they're like we're not ugly, and what happens is these two truckers pick them up, and like they're following the bus the entire time, which is very much like Cheerleaders Wild Weekend, right, with the bus and everything. And they're like, well, they rape me too. Like, the girl just wants to be known as pretty, and it's so weird, so bizarre. But of course, they rape and molest all the girls on the bus. Pretty graphic stuff, actually. The one scene that always stuck out to me was literally half the girls are bent over naked, and the guy goes down the aisle and plows each of them, and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. That's just insane shit. Like, it's one of the, I meant ballsiest Nikatsu movies. I don't even know if ballsy is the word. Crazy, insane ones. And like I said, there's these bits of dark comedy that are just fucking make it all more outrageous. There's of course scenes towards the end of the film too where you realize that every guy in the movie is a rapist or want to be a rapist or would be rapist if they have the chance. It's complete and utter sleaze. It fits in right with the Nikatsu kind of catalog this year. As far as horror thrillers and exploitation are, they're all exploitation, but horror thrillers are more concerned. We kind of lean to that horror bend. I've watched probably more than half a dozen of them from this year, and a couple I've gotten AI subtitles that actually worked. But White Rose Campus, if you're in it to watch, like I want to watch a 70s American exploitation movie done by a Japanese guy that's not holding back, then White Rose Campus is for you. Okay, I'm going to correct myself right away. This director did a zoom up. Sorry about that, guys. The last director for White Rose Campus did not. This director did. This is Blue Woman, a Nikatsu movie. And the plot sounded really crazy, really awesome. So I was like, well, awesome to me because I'm sick. But I was like, this sounds wild. I did AI subtitles, and with the new computer and everything, I can do a little bit better. And they actually turned out pretty decent. So we have Blue Woman here. And this story is wild. So what we have here is this woman is married to this closeted guy, and she's having an affair with this other business guy. Then they're all kind of know each other in the business world. But what happens is this gay guy's parents are upset with her cheating on their son, so they kidnap her, they kidnap her lover, and they hire these kind of sexual kind of like people to train them and torture them and whatnot. So they put all these people in the room, and they feel like if the parents are very heavy-handed taking place in this too, so they've got a couple old people doing it too. They feel like if they could sexually torture this woman and degrade her in front of the son might not be gay anymore. I don't fucking know. But of course, they have like the see-through glass, and they're torturing them and raping the woman and doing all sorts of things like, making her like, just doing weird shit where they tie something around her, or, her clitoris and lift it up. And it's just really unpleasant, weird shit. And in the beginning, it's kind of like a blackmail thing. You think they're doing that, but it gets really crazy right away. And most of the movie does take place in the sex dungeon room, which is not really unheard of. Nurse Diary, Beast Afternoon was similar in that way, which is the same year where we kind of have a major component of that just being sexual torture and stuff. And pretty much all of them, honestly, were probably along the same lines and the same vein as this. But so what this one has going for it is the obvious tinge of homosexuality here with this character who, instead of focusing on his wife and possibly being attracted to her through sexual torture and deviancy, he ends up starting to be even more attracted to the guy. And he already was attracted to him, so he's watching the guy. And this is one of the, I wouldn't say only, because it does happen a couple times in the Nikatsu movies, where a man is raped in here. And it ends tragic, worthy of Shakespeare, if I will say so myself. Very tragic, very dark. Blue Woman, good one, well shot. well acted too. You know, it's one of those ones that's just a lot better than Beast Afternoon, which I watched. Nurse Diary. That one was probably one of the weakest Nikatsus I watched from '82, but this one is strong, solid. Not quite as funny as White Rose Campus, but you guys bring your pervert cards for the two Nikatsu movies, and you'll be perfectly fine, right? You might get arrested. Pervert card does not get you or it's not a get out of jail free card. You know, you might get in trouble. Just don't watch it in public. Okay, the next one here, I believe, is a Taiwan movie. It might be mistaken here, but this is the same director as The Devil. Definitely a Taiwan movie. The Devil's Taiwan. The Devil and The Witch with Flying Head from '82 as well. Devil's '81. So this director has a couple titles that I think a lot of people have seen. The Witch with Flying Head is one of those titles that are like, oh shit, this sounds great. And on paper, it looks great, but it just kind of falls a little flat for me. The Devil, I think, is one of the best Taiwan horror films I've seen from this time period, at least from the early '80s. It's this one, The Evil Girl. Subtitles aren't great. It's kind of a VCD rip. It doesn't look very good. But as far as I could tell, the plot is this. The subtitles came with it. I didn't AI these things, but I probably should have. So as far as I could tell, here's kind of what happens. This woman is cursed for some reason, and every night she wakes up and she must suck blood. So she goes out with her giant teeth, which is very similar to what was that Indonesian flick, right? Where she has she's cursed and she's getting family revenge and she walks out all ugly and she basically attacks people. A lot of people will fight back, and worms. She'll puke up worms. She'll puke up snakes, and it's very much in that kind of vein, right? The Taiwan kind of puke snakes and worms and all that kind of shit. But what we find out is they're obviously going to try to stop this curse and help her out. And there's two people that are one person controlling her, and they get somebody else, and we have a giant wizard battle at the end of this movie. It's weird, it's bloody, it's gory, it's a little nonsensical, it's fast-paced. The Evil Girl is everything I guess you would want in a Taiwan kind of magic fighting spell snake puke worm fest movie. So there you go. Is it perfect? No. Is it fine? Yes. Is it good? It's for what it is. Yes, I did enjoy it, and I do like it. It's just the quality is really bad. The subtitles are really bad, and it's so like soft that you're like, who's that? Who are these characters? I can't tell who any of these characters are because everything's so soft. Everybody looks the fucking same. But The Evil Girl would be much better if I had a better quality, but still worth watching for '82. How could I not watch a movie by the director of The Witch with the Flying Head? Duh. Okay. The Patreon pick is one that I actually really love. This is 1998's Deep Rising from Steven Sommers. It stars Treat Williams, Famke Johnson, Kevin J. O'Connor, Wes Studi, Anthony Harold. How do you say his name? Harold? Who else? Cliff Curtis is in here. Trevor Goddard. The dude from Blood Diamond. So there's tons of people in this movie. This movie's a frickin' blast. So Deep Rising. Steven Sommers directed this movie. He directed the Mummy movies previous, or maybe I think around the same time, probably a little previous if I'm not mistaken. And he also directed Van Helsing, which I do not care for at all. But Deep Rising has always been my favorite of his. Treat Williams, underrated actor. I've loved Treat Williams ever since I saw Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead with Critical Bill, You Are Godzilla, I Am Japan. You know the line. Maybe you don't, but he's just a great actor. He's in Hair. Just a good actor. Never really got his due. There's a lot of movies he's in that I have not seen, but this one follows the story of a group of kind of like gun for hire kind of guys that drive boats, and they get hired. It's Treat Williams, Kevin J. O'Connor, and I can't think of the other actress's name, but they get hired by Wes Studi and his evil kind of mercenaries to drive out and kind of like take over this luxury yacht, but Anthony Harold's yacht. I can't think of his name, how he says it, but he's in Silence of the Lambs and some other films as well. But Famke Johnson is a criminal on the yacht, and she gets locked into the freezer, and that's what saves her life. Because right when they decide to knock down the communications of this giant yacht, something else in the water decides to attack this boat, Deep Rising, and it's some sort of creature, like a giant underwater worm that's somewhat kind of like, mutated octopus at the same time. I always thought it was an octopus, but I'm completely wrong. It's a giant fucking ocula worm or some shit. I don't know what it is. But it's a giant sea worm that eat you alive. So, by the time they get the boat, everybody is fucking slaughtered. Really well done action scene in the beginning with everybody sliding back and forth on the boat. And it's up to these mercenaries to try to survive along with Kevin J. O'Connor and Treat Williams and all that kind of stuff like that. It's fun. It's got witty dialogue. It's got goofy dialogue. It's a big, dumb action horror monster movie. Some of the CGI doesn't look great, but it's very forgivable considering how entertaining the movie is. Trevor Goddard is a weird actor. He's an English actor. He carried on an Australian accent throughout his entire career. You know, he plays Kano. He's in Men at War. He was in Flexing with Monty. Just a bizarre kind of actor, character actor. Didn't live very long, unfortunately. But it's wild seeing him and Cliff Curtis and I can't think of Deshaun. I can't think of his name, but he's in here as one of the goons. Wes Studi's their leader, and Stacy. I think his name was Stacy, and Menace to Society's in here too, and he's good in here. So it's like got a great group of Jason Fleming too. Great group of mercenaries, and I love that kind of stuff. And they get picked off by the creature. It's just a really, really fun movie. I like how it looks too. It's got a dark look to it, but it's not too dark. It's well lit for what it is and how it's supposed to. And I just watched Deep Blue Sea not too long ago and covered it on the show, and it's just like fun watching these big aquatic horror movies from the late 90s. And I think I'm a Deep Rising guy over Deep Blue Sea, but I do enjoy both of them. As far as the special features are concerned, there's a slew of them. Audio commentary by Stephen Summers and editor Bob Dusquet. Interviews with actor Wes Studi. Seems like a really cool guy, artistic guy, guitar playing guy. Kevin O'Connor. I always say Kevin J. O'Connor. Why did I say that? Is that wrong? I think it's wrong. But Kevin O'Connor, he talks about, you know, working with all these big directors in his time and being completely floored because he was a big movie fan. Love hearing that. Anthony Harold. Or is it Healed, possibly? But, you know, he's also a very interesting guy. Talks about being a little too young for the role, but now he's the right age. Interview with second unit director Dean Cundy, of course, legendary cinematographer. Interview with FX John Burton. Interview with FX Van Ling, banned from Ranch Entertainment. Interview with Brad Proctor. Interview with Doug Morrow. Interview with DP Howard Antherton. ILM behind the scenes extras. Newly commissioned art by Jacob Phillips. Animated image gallery. 5.1 surround sound and 2-point stereo. Sounds pretty freaking good. Love seeing this, man. This was a favorite. You know, it's funny is my friend Dustin Mills, he used to make movies with him. He loved Deep Rising, if I remember. Him and Brandon liked this movie, and I enjoy it. I mean, how can I not like it? It was a product of its time, 12 years old. Remember enjoying it when I saw it. Watched it a few times. Good gory bits, too. There's a lot of good gags in here, and Kevin O'Connor is a very funny guy. Liked him in There Will Be Blood and Lord of Illusions. Just a good actor. Underrated actor. You know, I think he's underappreciated. Good character actor. And I said, this movie's full of underappreciated people that I think always do a good job. And they're good in here. They're fun in here. The boat captain also, he's in a bunch of stuff. And a couple of the, he's in a couple of the, what the fuck is, Terry Gilliam movies, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, great cast, fun cast, gory, fun, goofy, little horror movie. Takes itself serious enough that it's great. And the great ending at the end. A little bit of shout out to, I don't want to spoil it, but you guys probably know it was supposed to be, I think my understanding is, lead into a reboot of King Kong. Alright, let's get these questions, comments, and concerns and all that jazz. Martin VP. The Netflix possession movie about the father and daughter is called Menendez, El Dia del Señor, I think. I like that one too. The other day I watched Demon City on Netflix. Like that one too. Thanks for another great episode. Thank you. Ken Coakley. I haven't seen The Long Kiss Goodnight in quite some time, but I remember working at a video store. Took out another movie and put The Long Kiss Goodnight in at around 7 or so, worrying the manager was going to come in and fire me. Luckily, I survived the night. Craig Burko played the bad guy. He played boxer Max Baer in Cinderella Man and starred in Scary Movie 4. Thank you. While reviewing The Lady as a Boss, you mentioned teacher at the martial arts school. Referred to teacher as a sensei, which is Japanese. I do know this. That's why I corrected myself. And Chinese martial arts teachers are called Sifu, pronounced Sifu. Yes, thank you. Which... they don't call him that in here. They just call him Master, if I'm not mistaken. Now for Taxi Driver, film that I actually talked about with William Forsythe at Rock and Shock in 2007. I was talking about the scene in Devil's Rejects when Forsythe was practicing in the mirror. What he was going to say once he confronted the trio. I told him that the scene reminded me of the iconic You Talking to Me sequence and asked if it was an inspiration. He said it partly was. Then he said that he watched Taxi Driver the night before Rock and Shock. He made an interesting comment. I told him that the sequence when Travis made the spring release was really scary. My friend who went with me mocked me for saying it was scary, and Forsythe said to my friend that the sequence as well as the rest of the film were a different kind of scary, which it was. I watched Taxi Driver on videocassette in the early to mid-80s, which was a time of unhinged people shooting up playgrounds and fast food places. Yeah, that dude shopped at McDonald's, right? So when Travis started to modify his weapons, I thought, good God, this guy is going to open fire on innocent people. But he does something heroic and kills those pedophile gangsters. I saw an interview with Martin Scorsese. He said that Travis got the mohawk because during Vietnam, Special Force buys would get unusual haircuts as a form of camouflage in the jungle. The politician's name in the film was Palatine. It does sound like Palpatine. I heard that didn't they take it from that and just change it a little bit for Star Wars? I'm not 100% on that, but I've heard that before. I like the casting in the movie. Victor Argo, who played the store owner, worked with, again, in Martin Scorsese in 88 as Peter in The Last Temptation of Christ. He's also in Mean Streets. He's the Harry Northam, who played Doughboy, was Scorsese regular. Peter Boyle really stood out in the film as Wizard, who puts all the nonsense into Travis's already fragile mind. Then when Travis tells Wizard that he might do something awful, Wizard just tells Travis to get hammered and lay as a solution, proving what we knew, that Wizard was full of shit the whole time. Some of the spilled boy was on Wizard's hands as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I just don't think he didn't know how to address it, which is true. Scorsese had 2 cameos in the movie. One was him sitting outside the campaign headquarters, and the other was the guy spying on his wife. Yep, I remember both. The cameo was last minute because George Mimoli, who was in Mean Streets, Phantom of Paradise as Philbin, and was in Rocky as a Zamboni driver at the ice ring, was supposed to do it, but he didn't show. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Another tidbit of last minute casting: Albert Brooks was hired at the last minute to replace Keitel, who was supposed to play the volunteer who had a crush on Sybil Shepherd's character. I did know that. Keitel decided that he wanted to play Sport the Pimp, a role that Scorsese wanted to be played by an African American to show that Travis was a racist. I'm glad it wasn't, because that would have been too far myself. There's a mock trailer for Taxi Driver marketed as a Disney film. Travis takes the date to see Steamboat Willie, and she gets offended. That's funny. Ed Rooney, again, illuminating and very entertaining episode. Thanks for that one. One thing, though. As far as I know, Rennie Harlan wasn't involved in Vertical Limit. You mentioned that in a review of Deep Blue Sea. Either it's a connection I couldn't find out or your synapses are mixing up the visual memory of Cliffhanger. We are not getting younger, I can tell you. But of course you get the point there. The Finnish director obviously likes snow and cold environments, as he shows in Die Hard 2, Cliffhanger, Mindhunters, the Dellof Pass, which is the Russian area, right? I don't know how to say that, but it's the Russian kind of crazy. The Dellof Pass incident where all those Russians just ended up dead naked in the snow. Very weird story. As you mentioned, Long Kiss Goodnight. I love Cutthroat Island, by the way. No snow, but a swashbuckling Gina Davis. The best chase involving a carriage ever, and a scene-stealing Frank Langella. I remember liking that movie too when it came out. And everybody, my family liked it. It's just everybody kept pushing that it was a big bomb. Same with Waterworld, and that was fine too at the time. Hudson Hawk was another one that we all liked, but everybody said it was a piece of shit in the critics. But I was a kid. We never got that information back then. Normal people didn't listen to critics a lot of times. They just rented and watched the movies. As far as Vertical Limit, I can't believe it's not. And this is not a mix-up this time, because my brain is getting shittier as I get older. But Vertical Limit, if you would ask me at when that movie came out, I could have swore it was Rennie Harlan. I could have. It's Martin Campbell, which blows my fucking mind. Didn't he do some Bond films, if I'm not mistaken? But I thought it was Rennie Harlan my entire life. It's not like a mix-up with Cliffhanger or something, or Die Hard 2. It's literally, I thought it was Rennie Harlan my entire life, and I always would say it was. That is just trusting yourself too well, or just having some piece of information that was fact in your head since you were a kid not be true, and I was just like, what? It blew my fucking mind, honestly. Terrible on my part. Thank you. Angela150, thanks for the great review, as always. I love The Long Kiss Goodnight. Gina Davis was awesome in this one. Did you like it, too? Yeah, I love it, yeah. Anytime I make a mistake like that, please correct me, guys. Ilk Vomit, time to dust off the show, Scott, Volume 1, and get you reviewing. Part 2 I need to review. I did one. Floyd Dillon, it's pronounced treacle. It's a thick, dark syrup, and it's British baking ingredient. Thank you. I did look that up when I watched the movie, but treacle is not something that we use here, and I had seen the term brimstone and treacle for years, so I always thought it was treacle. But I remember when I watched the movie, originally I looked it up, and it completely lost my mind. I didn't remember it this time, because obviously I'm not retaining knowledge like I should. Beyond Sour Ground, hey Mrparka, thanks for the thoughtful response to my comment. I think you summarized a disturbing era of horror perfectly when you said we were young, it was a different time, it was something we were all into back then. Just to clarify, I never saw you as an extreme horror guy, and we definitely talked about other types of horror films back that time period. I just vividly remember our conversation on slaughtered vomit dolls for some reason. As you're right, it did seem like there was a demented but friendly competition between all of us to see who could discover the next most disturbing horror film. I have a lot of nostalgia for that time period in horror and life in general, as I was discovering so many amazing films that I still love to this day. And because I was making YouTube videos too, I felt more involvement in the horror community. It's unfortunate so many of the other people who were making videos back then are no longer around anymore, but I can't talk as something I've definitely fallen in and out of over the years. And even worse, I'm that dumbass that would delete his old channels and start new ones. Hell, I never ever did that. Like, so many people are like, I'm done with this, I'm done with that. I just like, when I'm done, I'm done. You just won't see any more videos. I'm just that type of person, you know what I mean? Of course, after you mentioned Scornfest, I had to look up that and figure out why I've never heard of that one either. And since it has 0 Internet Movie Database user reviews, while Psychic TV First Transmission had about a dozen, definitely says something. Oh, thanks for the recommendations on Satan's Baby Doll and Cafe Flesh Dough. Those are 2 I will get around to checking out. I definitely fall into the same camp as you, as I have a particular appreciation for older films, and I'm much more open to watching older films, even if they're outside my typical interest. Though there are a few disturbing 1970s films I will probably never watch either, like Weddings Frau. That's aka Pig Fucking Movie. Sweet Movie and Animal Farm. I've never seen Animal Farm. I've seen Sweet Movie, and I have Pig Fucking Movie here. Sweet Movie's a good movie, and it's worth watching to see John Vernon with a gold dick. It's worth watching. But I understand why you don't want to. And there's some really gross, nasty shit and it has the kid stuff. Honestly, Sweet Movie is one that everybody's like, well, Serbian film. It's like, what about fucking Sweet Movie? What the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, that's some real edgy shit for, not edgy, but pushing the shit. Well, Serbian film is a fucking puppet. It's a fucking rubber thing laying on the ground. Nobody ever got hurt. So there you go. I get your perspective on the adult horror films. I also agree that hardcore version of Thriller plays better than the soft version, but the soft version makes creative changes that I dislike. If there was a version that just omitted the penetration footage of the hardcore footage, that would be my preferred cut. I found that explaining the concept of X-rated horror to non-horror fans seems to be an impossible task. One time I was watching the Extra Weird Sampler, which is a something weird video trailer compilation DVD with other people. They were inquiring about the existence of horror porn and its purpose. I had to explain to that I really don't know who these films are for, as horror fans don't watch these films for arousal. They're mostly curiosity pieces and enjoy the absurdity, which they found amusing. Though I can't blame them, because I asked the same question. It does freak me out a bit to think that someone out there would find that films like Water Power or Taming of Rebecca arousing. Anyway, since we all know this channel is about muscles, not movies, will we be launching the official Mrparka OnlyFans to post all your scandalous tank top photos? I don't know. Maybe soon. Maybe soon. Depends how bad things get out there. You know, the economy doesn't pick up. I'm just kidding. I can't do that. Now we have Gray Nunez. Cameras. I know you were joking, by the way, but so thank you. Nick Moore from Belgium. You might kind of enjoy Scream 4. I enjoyed it more than Scream 3, which I always felt like a Halloween H2O ripoff to me. Well, Halloween H2O ripoff is a Scream ripoff, so everyone's ripping off's a ripoff, which sounds bad. Even though there was allegedly trouble behind the scenes of Scream 4, and one of the young hot stars, let's call her Gemma Ribberts, kept referring to Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson as those old geezers, I still like the film to this day. I absolutely, completely love Beastmaster ever since my mother recorded it for me back in 1990. I have the old DVD, but the Blu-ray looks fantastic, and all the new features, both fun and informative. I'd take it. So well worth the upgrade. I think so. Questions. What was your favorite sword and sorcery flick as a kid? As a kid, Willow, probably, if you count that one. I watched Willow a lot. I don't remember it if I like it, but I loved Willow growing up. And I love Kroll back in the day. I love Kroll. I know that's kind of not necessarily a sci-fi to it, but now I tried to watch Kroll a couple times over the years, and I'm like, this is not good. So I also liked Conan the Barbarian, too. I always liked Conan. But do you have a favorite horror movie where you know there was a lot of drama and hate behind the scenes? I mean, Evil Dead. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know Evil Dead doesn't have a lot of hate and drama, but it was not easy to shoot. Texas Chainsaw. They all bitch about it constantly. It was the worst fucking day. I almost killed. So Texas Chainsaw. The next time, God willing, and beware the moons, moors at night under the light of the full moon. Bye. Thank you. Take care for sure. Let's get into this update. It's only one title here. Somebody suggested I pick this bad boy up, and I did it. Funeral Siniestro, which is there's the other title with a similar thing. I think these are South American, and what is this? I can't even barely say that the way it is. Triángulo del Orgo, and this is double feature here of two South American horror films on Blu-ray, and one's from 77 and one's from 85. Both in Spanish. They look wild. I guess one's a tape master, one's a 35 millimeter theatrical print. But these look wild. These look fun. It's a new company here. What is it? Petrograph Films, or is it Petroglyph? Petroglyph. Sorry, it's hard to read the things here. This is the first release, but very cool. Look forward to checking out Funeral Siniestro for sure. That's definitely up my alley. And I had heard of it, but I had never seen that one. But yeah, cool stuff. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.